Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Writer Podcast, a podcast devoted to helping you establish the mindset that will allow you and your writing to flourish in the new world of self-publishing. My name is Diane Patterson. I'm a novelist and blogger, and with me is my co-host.
I'm Hannah Steenbock, a German author and coach.
And this week, we apparently have much to say on the subject of being prolific, but we'll get to that after we catch up on what we've been doing this week, which is how we got on the subject of being prolific. My week has been pretty good. How's yours, Hannah?
My week was amazing. And since we didn't really talk last week, I'm going to lump it into 1 week. I think I need to add it up, but I think I wrote about 30,000 words.
In how many days?
10 days, more or less.
Okay, that's slightly different than your normal total, I think.
Absolutely. It all started when I began measuring my daily word count, and you may find my rather ugly and incomplete template in the show notes of last 2 weeks or our last show. And so that kind of inspired me to write more and to, when you look at it in the evening, you think, I only did 500 words today. Maybe I should just put in a couple more. And I don't know, it seems to have unlocked something in my brain. And I've experienced something that I haven't for over a decade, to be honest. I've been attacked by a novel idea.
Yeah, I've seen your references to the attack novel.
Yes, it's a term I first read in the blog of Judith Tarr. She talked about an attack novel a year ago when she dropped off the social media screens and said, I've been writing. Not to mention she's running a horse farm, but so she'd been writing, and she told everyone it's been an attack novel, and she'd been putting every free minute into it, and that's how I felt. So I thought, I'm going to borrow that term, attack novel. It's actually bringing together a whole lot of elements that have been in my head for years and years, and I've always wondered how to put these into a story rather than, preaching about discrimination or whatever. So it all came together.
Is this your usual genre, or generally? Hannah and I don't talk about the specifics of what we're working on, but now I'm kind of curious. Is this a different genre, or?
I would call it science fiction romance.
Okay.
Because it's definitely science fiction. It takes place on a planet that's been colonized by humans and by aliens.
And we are in science fiction.
That's science fiction.
That's science fiction.
It doesn't have magic. So definitely science fiction.
Okay.
And it has a lot of sex in it, which is, again, something I've been trying out recently.
Which way Hannah comes up with yet another pseudonym.
I think I can put my whole romance stuff under that one. But
okay.
Yeah, I've actually just thought of a nice one that I might go with. We'll see about that. But yeah, I'm going to put all this romance stuff under one pen name, and Hannah is going to write tame, exciting, adventurous fantasy, while Joanna is going to write the hot stuff.
Well, we can get into the use and reasons for pseudonyms now or another time, but that completely makes sense. If it's completely different than everything Hannah writes, then you should have a different name.
It's very different from what Hannah writes. Hannah tends to close the door on sex, which is fine. It's just the way her stories are. Her stories are different.
Now you know too much about me. I have read a lot of romance novels. There's a lot of romance novels that the sex has been just fine. Thank you. But there are a lot of books I've read where suddenly there's a sex scene and I'm like, what's happening here? Flip, 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 flip. I don't have a problem with sex scenes. I have a problem with scenes that stop the book cold, that have nothing to do with what's going on and totally don't fit the tone.
Absolutely, so, absolutely. And I absolutely and totally agree. And I was really pleasantly surprised that whatever I was writing, and it's oh God, the first 2 chapters are basically romping in bed, but because
is this common in science fiction? I haven't been reading much science fiction recently.
It seems that science fiction romance is a very narrow genre, which is also something that, you know, from a marketing point of view, is absolutely interesting. To have a genre that's narrow, that doesn't have a whole lot of authors writing in it, which makes visibility so much easier. So yeah. I didn't decide on this from a marketing point of view. I've been wanting to do something like that for ages, and like I said, it suddenly all came together. And this is a planet that was colonized by humans and then colonized by aliens, and there's actually good reason why the aliens sort of enslave the humans and use them for sex. And that's how it's starting out.
That's
my main character is a human.
I regret even knowing this, but that is actually a huge genre.
Probably.
So,
but it's not dinosaur porn, so there we go.
Yeah, and romance is, even erotic romance is a longer lasting genre than just straight erotica. So good choice.
So anyway, this is how it's starting out. This is not how it's going to stay. This whole thing is, my main character is the catalyst for changing everything with that. So it's going to be interesting because it actually has quite an involved plot. So I don't know if the romance people will love it because it has plot, or if the science fiction people will love it because it has sex. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah. But it certainly clobbered me over the head. And I messed up with my newsletters last week because of it.
With your what?
I send out coaching newsletters every week.
Oh, newsletters. Oh.
And I messed up with my English language one badly last week. Because I kind of lost focus on that. Apologies to everyone who gets my Writer's Dream Coach newsletter. God. My mind was so totally elsewhere.
So, so your normal schedule, as we've talked about before, is that you get up in the morning, you do some writing, you do some meditation, you do some writing, then you go to work.
Yes.
And would you come home and write?
Normally, I come home and I get on Facebook and I do some Facebooking because early afternoon is my mental downtime. I'm just not really up to being anyway creative. And my brain comes back online around 5.
And then would you do more, your usual schedule? Would you then do more writing?
My usual schedule is, it hasn't been very productive. I would futz around on the internet, play games, try to write a little bit, cook dinner for me. I mean, I usually have not been really productive. And
so now with the attack novel, what is the schedule like?
I come home from work, I turn on the computer, and usually I pull out the file and write. And when I write what I thought about on my way home. I walk to work, so I have 20 minutes of walking, and I usually use that time to think about the next scene. So I walk home, turn on the computer, write down that scene. Then I go to Facebook, do the Facebooking, have some food. Usually the afternoon is not productive. I still have this time when my brain is just not really that active. I sometimes actually curl up in bed and either sleep or think about the next scene. I love my bed. It's the best place where I can plot, really. I just curl up, And I live alone, so who cares? I curl up in my bed and I think about the next scene. And I just love getting all comfortable and warm.
Has that always been true for you? That
I
you
can plot really well in bed. It's absolutely weird.
because I get into bed and it's time to read. I've been reading, of all the times in my life to start reading Reddit. I started reading this subreddit called Glitch in the Matrix. So, but I get into bed, I read a book, I read articles on the internet, whatever. I don't usually think about writing. So
It has a drawback. In the afternoon, it's awesome. I can really let my mind wander. My bed is my absolute comfort zone. It's where I can relax. And in the afternoon, it's fine, even if I doze off. In the evening, when I go to bed and my mind starts down the novel track again, that can mean that I don't sleep very well. And that happened to me one night when I had a difficult scene ahead of me. I lost sleep to it. The characters were fighting in my head. It took me actually another half day before I could calm them down enough to be able to write the scene without it completely getting out of control. That was one day where I wasn't really prolific because my brain was just too much of a wild thing.
I'm really interested in the part where, because my afternoons are usually shot. I don't try to drink a lot of caffeine or anything during it. I'm just sleepy. My mornings are great, and then 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, boom, I might as well just start watching Netflix because I have no mental energy.
Yes.
But you're reporting that even though you usually don't have mental energy in the afternoons, suddenly it's different.
Yes, I think taking myself away from Facebook and from the computer, and I'm way backwards. I only have my desktop. I have no tablet. I have my desktop, and I have a defunct laptop.
You have a what?
So,
that's
a laptop.
The old laptop. The old laptop.
That's practically dead now. So that's where I have my internet, at my desk. So if I walk away from my desk, that's mentally freeing. I find myself not hopping from page to page, from information to information, but it's freeing my mind to roam. And during an attack novel time, it roams to the story. That's just where it goes. And that's how I can turn this downtime into plotting time, by curling up somewhere, just not just letting the mind wander, giving my characters the space to create the next scene. I'm a total pantser. I have a beginning, I have some plot points, I have the ending in mind. I know where I'm going, but in between, what happens in between is I leave that to my writing brain, my writing instinct, and that's where the scenes come from.
I can do that, but I find that I have to push it along a little, because if I just leave it up to whatever I want to do, or whatever scene occurs to me or whatever, whatever I'm working on becomes a list of one damn thing after another.
Yes, I totally get that. That is the danger. And I love it, but like you said, I kind of rein it in as well.
You have to shape what's going on.
Yes, it's like you get these lumps of clay, and they start growing into something, but it has to fit the story.
Yeah. So 30,000 words in 10 days, you said?
About, something like that.
So, and Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm wondering about. You've mentioned because you're keeping track of it. I have kept track of my writing plenty of times. I've done it for Nano. I have this app that I use that I think I forgot to put a link to, but I will put a link to the show notes today. I like keeping track of my writing. I love seeing that little check mark on my, and the number on, so I can keep track of how much I'm writing. I don't find that it really increases or, has any effect on whatsoever how much I'm actually writing.
I think for me, it was the mindset switch.
The what?
A mindset.
Oh, mindset switch. I thought you said
I don't
light switch, and I'm like, I have missed the metaphor here.
We're getting a little
Mindset
echo here.
switch. Yes.
I haven't tracked my writing for a long time, except for Nano. And I decided to put in my blogs because I write 2 blog posts every week. Sometimes I repurpose an old one, but usually I write 2 blog posts a week. And I put some time into my stories. And I wasn't happy with the time I was putting into my stories. It wasn't enough. I thought I was not being productive enough. And Christine, our mutual coach, says what you measure grows. So I thought, well, try and track what you're doing. Try to track the words. So I created this ugly template. And I've been tracking words for August. That's when I started. August 5th is the first day in there. And the first thing I noticed was that I kind of liked getting 1,000 words a day, which was even more than I was doing for a long time. And when I got a day without making 1,000 words, I thought, eh. And that actually gave me the incentive to pull up a file and put in a couple of words at night before going to bed. And I think it opened pathways in the brain. I think it opened my old writing energies. I can hardly describe it. When I first started out writing in 2000, I wrote for hours a day. I'm pretty sure I put in 10,000 words every day. That was just, it was feeling just like I felt in the last 10 days. I was just overwhelmed with story ideas, scenes. That stuff is not really good. I mean, that was 15 years ago. I was just starting out. So reading it now, I can see it needs a lot of work. But I know I have 15 years of experience to put into my story.
Oh, sure.
And I think the whole draft is a whole lot better. The whole story arc is a lot better. It's much more coherent than what you said, one damn thing after the other.
Right. You creating a shape and a flow to your work, as opposed to, like I've mentioned with a couple of books that I've read recently, I'm like, guys, it's just one thing after the other. Come on, where are we going here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my characters are building friendship, they're building connections, they are finding a common ground. I have 4 main characters, 2 humans, 2 aliens. They're starting to reveal how their world functions, and they're starting to cause trouble in the society. So,
well, that would be where one starts one story. So in the past week, what is it? No, 2 weeks ago, I went to Asheville. Mm-hmm. This is the thing, people. I'm having trouble keeping track of time. This summer is killing me. The kids have gone back to school, and then my son was sick for a while. So again, a mindset thing. When the kids are here, I have a heck of a time focusing on my work. And I know that there are plenty of people out there who have more kids than I do and can focus just fine. So that's my thing. It's not about kids. So if you're blaming your kids, stop it. I just can't. But nonetheless, when I haven't had to be dealing with my kids, 24/7, I have been writing. It's been pretty cool. I haven't been quite as prolific as Hannah has been, but I would say I've done about 10,000 words this week. Cool. And I think I did about 10,000 last week. I'm speeding along. I'm feeling pretty good.
What happened to get you speeding along?
Having a better vision, and this is just how it works. Having a better vision of where I'm going. I've decided my thing. So, as I mentioned earlier this summer, especially after we talked to Libby Hawker, I did this great outline. I had my cards. I had everything organized. And then I started writing and said, oh, yeah, these 3 scenes, let's put those into one and put it somewhere else and get rid of this character. So currently, outlining scene by scene is not working for me. Knowing an absolute endpoint does seem to be working better for me. And I find that very interesting because I've always been the kind of person who starts with what I think is an interesting problem and then says, let's see where that goes. And I'm kind of, despite having a master's degree in screenwriting, finally coming around to the idea that maybe I need to have a specific ending. Yeah, I know. Go ahead, make fun of me.
Why should I?
Well, I feel slightly embarrassed by that. But, you know, you gotta keep writing to find out what really works for you. That is currently, because I know what I have to get to, and things that I need to mention to get to that point. Things are going pretty well. Something interesting though is, so I went to Asheville. I went to this business retreat where we spend 2 days working very intensely on our business. You know, what we're doing, the problems we're having, the people we're trying to reach. And they talk about the energy vortex that's created. Trust me, you don't want to get involved with this particular program unless you're okay with like crazy spiritual talk. So, which most people who know me would think, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's crazy, but which is, you get this high, it goes up, and then and I could feel my mood crashing. Now, I kept writing. The writing was fine. But my mood, like all of the optimism and energy that I had right after Asheville, crashed in a big way. And I keep wanting to like ping my friends, like, did this? So I don't want to lead them. You know, you don't want to give leading terms. So how are you feeling? How's things going? Is it really just me? But I sat down, I was thinking about 2016 and sort of what things. So I've discovered this year that traveling, apparently my family can handle it if I'm not here 365 days a year. So I started thinking, okay, where would I like to go next year? So I have been looking into to various mystery conventions to start going and hanging out and seeing what they're all about. That's sort of, it's kind of like, I'll plan 2016. That will boost my energy a little. And that is, again, all energy thinking about business. The writing has been really good. I've been pretty excited about that. So
that's one of the many hats we have to wear as a writer in the 21st century. We have to create the content. We have to, I've been thinking about this a lot in the last couple of weeks. We have to create the content that's at the core of our being and of our business. If you think about it, without our content, we don't have a business as an author.
Right.
And the content is our treasure, is our material we work with, the words we create, we put on the page, the stories. But then we have to turn around and market them and think in business terms of This is a product, and we need to get it out there. And some people say it's an asset because a story can keep giving for years and years and years if you do it right. So you have to make business decisions. How am I? What content am I creating? Like, am I creating a series? Am I creating standalone books? Am I creating novels, novellas, whatever? You need to think about that strategically. You need to think about how you want to publish them, ebooks, prints, which services to use. Do you want to go wide? Do you want to go into KDP Select? These are all decisions you have to make that require a very different mind than the writing mind. I think it's an entirely different mindset. I mean, I write in fictional worlds. I love creating worlds, and a part of me wants to shape the business world as much as I can shape the fantasy world, and of course you can't because.
Well, there are certainly things that I've noticed that the more successful indie authors I know of have all done. And it's like a checklist, things that they have all done, to the point where it's like, you know, guys, there are certain things you can do to maximize your success at this. And if you're not doing them, okay, but are you aware you're not doing them and why you're not doing them? There are several authors on one website that I go to who it seems to be a badge of pride that they still have homemade covers and difficult blurbs and don't know, they sell everything at, 99 cents, and then they don't know why they're not making any money. It's like, well, the first three things somebody sees: covers, blurb, and I guess price. Just and price. Yeah, I was going to say genre, but I guess that's in the cover. Your buyer knows within a couple seconds whether they want to buy that book or not.
Yeah,
you just got to help them along. And it's so funny talking to people about blurbs, because I'm like, what makes you pick up a book?
Yeah.
What about, if you read that blurb, would you buy that book? And I'm not saying that it's automatic. I'm not saying that you can't improve your blurbs. I'm sure that I can improve mine. But look at it, in that way. And people are like, well, no, that doesn't get to the heart of what my novel is about. And it's like, your blurb isn't about the heart of your novel. Reading your novel is about getting to the heart of your novel. The blurb is to get people to turn to page 1.
Yes, or read the sample, or just take a closer look. That's what all these steps are about. Yeah. Get a cover that gets people interested, and whether they can read your name. I've seen horrible covers where you can't even read the author name on it.
And everyone says you have to look at your cover in a thumbnail to see, because that's how most people are going to see it the first time. And if you don't know what a thumbnail is, look into it. It's the little tiny picture that you see on an Amazon page. In the, like this customer, people who bought this book also bought, and you see a list of thumbnails. That is how most people are going to see your book the first time.
And I know it is difficult to write the blurb, or some Amazon calls it the description, because blurb can also mean this little endorsement thing other authors say about your book. When you see this book, whatever, and then it says it's an amazing adventure, Stephen King. Whatever.
Right. I don't know. Most authors I've talked to say that those blurbs. I know blurb has come to mean the text on the back of the book, and that is not what I grew up knowing it as. I always thought blurb was an endorsement from other authors on the front of the book, but most authors I know say that endorsements are not very important. Everyone asks for them. Publishers ask for them. Editors ask for them. Apparently readers really don't care. So they're nice,
Yeah,
but not.
I remember seeing these blurbs on books, and I was thinking, huh, and McCaffrey said something about this. It did help. Like, it kept my interest a couple minutes longer. It made me look at the back of a book. It made me read the description, the blurb nowadays. But if I didn't like the topic, or if I didn't like the way the angle seemed to be, or the atmosphere of the book seems to be, I didn't buy it anyway. I mean, it didn't matter if any of my favorite authors blurbed it or not. So what you really need to work on is a good description, and this description needs to capture the feel of the book more than give a summary or something. I mean, don't give a summary in your blurb. Capture the feel of the book.
Say what's intriguing about it. You know, the initial intrigue about it. You know, you can. How would you blurb some of your favorite stories? You know, do that exercise a lot, and then see how they, you know, the professionals blurbed those stories.
Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of Stephen King, God, am I good? Speaking of Stephen King, so Hannah pointed out an article in the New York Times that I had not seen or heard of. I guess I haven't been online. That was published. Oh, I guess it's this weekend. It says 8/31, and today is August 28th. August 28th. So it's actually in the Sunday Times of New York. And it is about being a prolific author and the stigma of being a prolific author. Now, there are many people who say that Stephen King writes too many books. I would actually say that, given one of his books recently I thought was absolutely terrible, to the point of, really, did Stephen King write this? But that's just me. Joyce Carol Oates is amazingly prolific. Wow, more than 50 novels. And of course, there are, and then there are the novelists who produce a book once every 8 years. There's a great series in Los Angeles. I don't know if they still do it, but it was called, my husband and I went to this all the time when we lived there. It was called Writer's Block. And it was at it was a Jewish cultural center. I can't remember the name of it, but it was writers interviewing writers, and it was fantastic. And the one that my husband and I still talk about is Michael Connelly, who was not as well known then. I was a huge fan of Michael Connelly at that point, but he was not as well known. And Michael Connelly was interviewing David Guterson, the author of Snow Falling on Cedars, among a couple of other books. And at one point, Michael Connelly asks David Guterson about his writing technique. And you know, Michael Connelly is putting out a book or two a year, one of his detective series. And David Guterson says that he writes a sentence, makes sure that he likes the sentence as it is, works on it for a while, then he moves on to the next sentence. And Michael Connelly looks at him and says, "And it only takes you 5 years to write a book?" I could not write that way.
No, I couldn't either.
Maybe I would write faster if I wrote that way. I tend to write a couple thousand words at a time, and sometimes I have to go back and rewrite some of them. But I would get so bored if I worked on a sentence and then worked on the next sentence. So David Guterson, not a prolific writer. I guess, oh God, the one everyone's going crazy about. Jonathan Franzen came out with a new novel this week. I guess he has a new book every 3 or 4 years. And he is the great American author. So everyone listens to him on the subject of what constitutes great writing. This, of course, makes him the subject of much hilarity on Twitter. In discussing Jonathan Franzen, who said some really horrible things this week, but we won't get into that. We'll get back to Stephen King in a second. Chuck Wendig, I don't know, do you follow Chuck Wendig?
Somewhat.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, he is.
I'll put a link to him in the show notes. Mentioned that it took him 5 years to write his first novel. How about that, huh? I found that very interesting. I would love to ask him more about, because he's writing a novel every 2 or 3 months now. He's writing his own stuff. He's writing Star Wars tie-in novels. Anyhow, okay, Stephen King. So on being prolific. We still have this cultural thing of, if you're prolific, you're writing crap. Yeah. I know that I have written some of my best stuff in a flurry, like you're doing with your attack novel. There have been some times where something, Nano is fabulous for getting stuff out. However, I know it's like, yes, I've written great stuff in a prolific manner. Your prolificity, is that a word? Your
productivity.
Your productivity means you're writing crap. And it's a really difficult, not you, Hannah. I'm talking about writers in general, not you. But it's a mental thing that I cannot get over.
Yeah.
And I know from my own experience that there is no, one does not lead to the other. There is no causal relation whatsoever between how much you write and how good it is. And yet, why is it? Why do we do this?
I think saying that writing fast creates crap that we just, what's that word? We crank out work.
Yeah, people always use the verb crank out, or shoot, there's another one that they use, but yeah.
And I think it's a defense mechanism for those who don't. Because if you don't write 3 novels a year, and I'm watching some authors pump out, that's probably the other word. I watch some authors who are full-time authors publish and self-publish, because that's much easier than doing it with a publishing house. They self-publish something every 2 to 3 months at least. And I'm just there and I'm just watching it and I'm just amazed and a bit jealous.
And
so if there's...
You're envious, not jealous.
I'm envious, yes, okay, I'm a little envious. I would like to be there. So imagine you're an author who takes 5 years to create a literary novel, polishing each sentence as you put it down, just very accurately and slowly. And that's your way of writing, and that's fine. But I can imagine authors who work in this meticulous way, that they're a little envious of those who produce novels, let me say, about 10 times as fast. And it's really very easy to say, in order to bolster your own position as author, to say, well, this can't be good because it's written way too fast. It just can't be good because they don't seem to take the time to polish every sentence. And so I think it's a natural mechanism. The thing is that with the way traditional publishing was structured, that's the people you listened to. And the way traditional publishing was structured, with a publishing house taking about a year to get a novel out from reception of the manuscript to doing the print run, very prolific writers had to use different pen names so they could create different contracts with different publishing houses in order to put all the many novels onto the market that they were producing. So they had to trick out the system that only allowed them to publish a novel per year max. So that they have been prolific writers before. We just didn't see them because they were using 3 or 5 different pen names.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's really, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I picked up a book by someone I do not think we have ever discussed. So not a name that I brought up here before. And I read the book. It was in a genre I enjoy very much. And I closed it when I finished it. And I said, that writer should have done another pass.
Yeah.
It was, you know, that writer's doing much better than I am. So I should just shut up. But that writer should have done another pass. It was so completely forgettable by the end of the book that I've never picked up anything by that writer again.
And I agree. That's the
downside. I don't know how to balance that. Is there anything about getting it out fast that leads to it not quite being there? Or is that writer? I know that I associate that you need another pass with going too fast.
And I think it is something to be aware of, especially with self-publishing, because the temptation is always there to just finish a story, read it through a couple of times, possibly have a couple of better readers look through it, maybe even pay for an editor, and then just throw it onto the market, just, get it out there. Because the pressure is there to be prolific. The pressure is there to be productive. Once you have a following, the fans actually put up the pressure and demand more stories and more books. So the temptation is certainly there to skip a step and be fast. And I think that this is something that we need to balance. I think as business owners, we need to create. Oh, I can hear Christine talking in the back of my head. We need to create a system for how we are taking our content from the moment it flows into the keyboard and the screen, and turn it from a manuscript into a book. We have to manage the steps to do it. We have to avoid taking shortcuts and make it the best we can. And I think being successful as an indie author means creating, can't think of a good word for it, but it means creating stable systems that enable us to create good content, to create memorable books. But yeah, I'm working on that. I don't have those systems completely in place yet.
The internal stuff, and then what you put out there. And, there's also the question of, would it have done that book any better if that writer had spent longer on that book?
We don't know. She might have needed an editor. She might have needed 2 more beta readers who told her, this is kind of boring. Whatever was wrong with the book. That's what I mean with systems, because systems keep you from giving into that urge to be fast, or giving into the urge of skipping a step because you promised your fans a book by the end of September and it's not ready.
I know. I've been thinking I have to send out a letter to my mailing list saying, I'm not dead, guys. I've just rewritten the book from page 1. Yeah. It's prolificness is weird. And I know another thing is, I guess Stephen King has said he writes 2,500 words a day, which, let's do the math. If you were doing 1,000 words a day, would be 365,000. 2,500 would be 730,000 plus 150,000, 180, whatever, about 1 million. That's a lot of words. And that's a good output, not a crazy output. I've had lots of normal days where I've done 3,000 and 4,000 words without feeling like I'd really killed myself. I can't do it every day. I physically, at the end of that, I feel exhausted, despite the fact that all I'm doing is moving my fingers on a keyboard.
Yes.
I don't know if that's like a muscle that you develop from running, or just everybody is different.
I think you do. I had an 8,000 word day. That was last week on Saturday, and I was really exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, I basically, I think I had some beer and crawled into bed, and and that was mostly from just having all this stuff going on in my head and putting it down and living it and feeling it, and that is exhausting. It's not just moving the fingers on the keyboard, it's living in the story that you're writing. So yeah, I think if you have an average of 2,500 or 3,000 words a day, that's darn good. That's really good.
I also wonder how much of this is ability to do nothing but write. You know, I mean, I have a lot of my stuff, household maintenance stuff, taken care of by other people. But I'm you know, my husband goes to work, and unless I ping him on something, he is not thinking about what's going on at home at all. He is focused on work from, you know, 9 to 9, basically. How much of it is ability? Because that's another thing I've heard from one, I guess I can say who this is, since she has said it, Marie Force, who has lots and lots of novels out there, who does about 4 or 5 novels a year, something crazy. All she does is write.
Yeah.
Literally every single other thing in the house is taken care of. She doesn't cook. She, you know, doesn't do any of the household management. She just writes. And, you know, how much of this is finding assistants, finding helpers, having virtual people take care of things for you? Or is it just some kind of, oh, I've done 2,000 words. Okay, that's all I can do. And I'm going to go crawl off. You know, how much of it is a mindset thing? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think it's individual, but it's worth it if you're listening to the podcast and if you're a writer. It's really worth looking into this. Is it you know? Is it because
you know,
you got used to a certain amount of writing per day and feel comfortable with it, and well, maybe it's time to challenge yourself.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you're working 40 or 50 hours a week at a regular day job, well, I don't know. John Grisham managed to do it, I guess. How do you get that novel written when you have other responsibilities, a family, a relationship?
Well,
maybe you just have to stop worrying about that. I don't know.
I have a friend who writes awesome Star Trek fan fiction. It will never get published, and she's taken the last 10 years for her latest work, which is, I don't know, a 1,000-page novel.
Oh, dear God.
And she's just about getting closer to the end. She's one of those who really meticulously thinks through her scenes, and she never edits. It's
I wouldn't bother. Really?
No. Her work is amazing. I mean, considering she does not edit, it's amazing. Honestly, I have her hand printed copies, and it's awesome. And anyway, her writing process includes spending a lot of time mentally in her world while she's gardening. Her biggest hobby is her garden. And she lives in a bad climate zone for roses, but she grows roses and she breeds them, and she's just all of it is. And she has a dog that she takes for long walks every day. So she uses that time to think about the scenes, and then eventually she sits down and writes them. And I think there are 2 ways of upping your productivity. Either you just spend more time per day writing, or you increase your writing speed, your average number of words per hour. Now, I can do that if I spend some time, like my walking home from work time, thinking through the next scene that I want to write. I can easily write 2,000 words in an hour.
Yeah, I agree.
2,000 words per hour is a pretty good speed.
It's funny because, you know, the book 2K to 10K, which, you know, I love, everyone loves, is really know what you're going to write before you write it. That's it. I've now spoiled the book for you. Know what you're going to write before you write it. I would really say, though, that if it's not one-to-one, that is, you think a lot about your story, but then you don't write anything on it, that's not helping. There has to be a specific result from whatever you're doing.
It has to be focused. Yeah. It has to be really focused on preferably the next scene that you're going to write, because that's going to get you into the starting position. And once you put your fingers on the keyboard in the pole position, you can just go and race. And I think that's what's really, really helpful. And that's what I do when I walk. That's what I do when I curl up in bed. I tend to focus on the next part that I want to write, or I hop into scenes that are going to happen in the sequel. And what I do is I sometimes make notes, sometimes I don't, but usually they stay with me and I can pull them back up when I'm there. But I do need this prep time for writing. Yeah. Sometimes I don't. On those days where I do 5K, 8K, it's just right there and just flows out. But that's the exception. I need to think through a scene and then I write it. And it often turns out differently, but who cares? That's just what happens. That's our art.
Oh, sure. I mean, I certainly believe in the element of surprise. So I like that very much.
Yes. But I need to get clear on the setting. I need to kind of know where it's going. I need to know what's the MC going to do, more or less. I need to know what's the villain going to do, what is going to happen, what are the NPCs. That's a role-playing name. NPCs are non-player characters. What are they going to do? If there are any. Sometimes you don't, but you don't have any. But so if I get the scene kind of moving in my head, then I can write it, and then I can write it fast.
So how long is this work that you're working on? What are you aiming for?
I'm looking at 3 installments at about 50K each. They're going to be short novels.
Okay. So when are you going to be done with the first one? Or what is your plan for the coming week?
I found out this morning that I overshot the first one. And I will need to go back and edit it some because it doesn't have the length that I want to have.
Right.
But yesterday I wrote a sentence and I thought, that would make a really nice final sentence for the novel. But I was only at 42K and I thought, nah, you need to do some more. So I wrote some more and I wrote some more and I wrote some more this morning, and I thought, you know what? Darn it, but that's part 2. So I overshot the ending. And what I did earlier today was actually copy paste the stuff around. So I have a file for part 2. And I'm going back through part 1. I do a lot of editing while I'm writing. I go through the scenes several times before I continue. But I took apart a couple of scenes, going to split them, going to add a couple more things to them. So I'm going to push the work. I'm not going to pad it. I'm just going to add some more character development and some more background to the whole world and get it up to 50K. So I'm happy with it.
So, well, what are you going to do in the next week? When we check in next week, what will you have done?
I will have edited a dragon short story for an anthology because I'm just getting feedback on it. And I have a deadline for it. I have 2 deadlines on September 16th. So the romance will probably have to take a little. We'll have to take a break, but I'm definitely going to edit the short story. I really want that off the books. I will have to go and edit my dragon novella, which is scheduled to be released in October. So I need to get through that. And I will take some time to write part 2 of my science fiction romance series, because it's just it's I can't get these people out of my head. So
yeah, well, you got to make use of that. So
yes.
I'm at about 60,000 words, I think, and currently the novel is shooting towards 80,000, which is fine. That'll be over. That'll give me something to cut.
All right.
So I think at this rate, things are looking good for next week, provided nobody stays home sick and there's no disasters around here, and summer will be over. Yay. Yeah. And then I guess Labor Day weekend is the weekend after that, and summer will really be over at that point. Okay. So and writing seems to be going really well. Yes. I'm going to say that it's the podcast's fault.
I love it. So go out, listeners. Go out, be prolific, keep writing. And we'll see you next week.
Yes, and I will have a link to the Stephen King article in the show notes. And maybe if you could find that Judith Tarr thing about the attack novel, I'll stick that in.
Yeah. I don't think it's really quotable. It's just in her life. She's still blogging on LiveJournal, and
okay.
She was just mentioning that term, and I borrowed it. So
okay. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been another edition of the 21st Century Writer. My name is Diane Patterson.
I am Hannah Steenbock.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.